Okay, so this demo is about creating textures for your sky. So the first thing you want to do is you want to look at the sky and you want to think about, well, what can I do to get kind of like the overall like main color of the sky? There might be some gradient there, and so you'll think about maybe multiple colors and layering. So when I look at this photograph and I look at my colored pencils, there's maybe a couple different colors that I'm going to pull out, and to lower the contrast of the blue that I see in the sky, I'm going to add the tiniest bit of orange. Before doing this, you can take a piece of scrap paper and test it out. Sometimes blue and orange, when they mix, can make like a green, so you have to be a little bit careful with adding those complements, and you want to go heavier on the blue than you do on the orange. You might also need to change the value of the, this blue is the blue that matches my sky the best, but you might have a blue that is a completely different value from your sky, and so maybe you'll have to layer it really lightly, like less pressure, or maybe it needs to be darker and you need to add more pressure. You can also mix your blue with a little bit of white if you see that you applied too much pressure, it's too dark. You can try and lighten it by either removing it a little bit with an eraser or going over it with white. Do a little test patch off to the side on some scrap paper before you go into those areas. Now the areas of the clouds that are lighter and that are white, I'm just going to leave go right now. I'm going to move into those a little bit later. But what I want to start to do is just honing in on these particular areas of the sky. So we're spending more time on this area now rather than working around the whole thing at once. We're going to work just on our sky and kind of work on the detail there. So as I get into places where I see that clouds are kind of like puffier, and depending on your landscape, you might have some areas where the clouds are much puffier, and so you might need to change up the type of stroke that you're applying. It might need to be more rounded and circular. Right now, since I'm working on this area, which is kind of like a flat blue, I'm just going to go in and kind of layer up more blue there. And like I said, I want to add in a tiny bit of orange to kind of lower the intensity a bit. I'm going to put that down and then I'm going to go over that with some more blue. But particular, there's an area right here that's kind of like darker and drearier, and so I want to go in there with some orange. You can see that also has kind of a darker edge to it before it kind of hits a layer of clouds here. And so I want to make sure that that comes through too. And that I will do just by applying the orange to lower the intensity of the color, to desaturate it a bit, and then adding more pressure with the blue over top. So that's kind of ways that we can control. With the orange, I'm desaturating the color and modulating the color. With the blue, I am going to change up the pressure to change the value. And using, what is more of like the local color, the blue. And so you can see as I'm working over top of that orange, the blue is now a much like stormier looking color to kind of reflect the sky in that area. This is from like the beach of an island somewhere, and islands experience a lot of like quick storms and sunlight, and so hopefully the sky that I'm demonstrating here will kind of apply, or parts of it will apply to your landscape in some way. Okay, so now I'm going to be working over that area of sky quite a bit with a bunch of different layers of different colors. Right now I'm putting that blue in over top of the orange to neutralize it some more. I also will go in with a purple later on just to get the color modulated to the correct color. And so you should work with light layers of color. Also, accenting the sky up against where the clouds are for white puffy clouds that pop out from a blue sky is important. You'll need to kind of go in with some sharper edges and some more definition and contrast there. And so I'm starting to kind of do that here. I'm starting to add some line work around those clouds. I want to blend those lines into the sky. So you don't want to outline any of your clouds. You want to make sure that the edges around the clouds blend in to the sky. Here, adding a little bit more accenting, changing up the direction of my strokes to be kind of more scumbling to get that like round puffy cloud texture. So depending on the types of clouds that you have in your landscape, your textures that you apply with your colored pencil are going to be different. If you have like puffy clouds, then you're probably going to need some scumbling and some really light scumbling to get like kind of the round textures. If you have more like stratus, stormy, like a long, long clouds, or like the wispy cirrus clouds, then you're going to need to do more kind of horizontal strokes with like some feathering textures. Keep in mind that white clouds do reflect all the colors around them. So white is a color that reflects other colors. So you will probably have some blue from the sky reflecting into the clouds, even some yellows or some oranges as well that reflect in the white of your clouds. So just look at your photo really closely to observe those things and add them as you see them. Okay, so now I'm just continuing to build up that color modulation and that value in that more darker area of sky. And so just working to layer different colors to get the correct color. And so I'm adding a little purple in there. I'm also adding a little bit of a dark blue. I'm adding some hatching in some places to kind of change the direction of the sky, make it look like it's going back in space towards the horizon line. Okay, and now I'm just adding some more accenting and detail around my clouds, working with like scumbling texture there to get that round puffiness and really kind of accenting the darkness of the blue against the white puffy clouds. So again, depending on what type of clouds you have in your landscape, you'll use different textural strokes. But you do kind of need to be observant of like how the white on your paper should be left white at this stage, and you should be working right up to the edge of that white with your sky color to make the clouds stand out and pop and look 3D. So we're kind of still going back to that like adding depth stage with your landscapes with the clouds right now. If you don't have any clouds in your sky, then you really just need to look at adding a gradient probably to your sky and just observing the changes in value. Okay, so I do need to get a little bit more of that color reflected in the white of the clouds. And so what I'm doing right now is I'm taking a white colored pencil and dragging the color into those areas. So a white colored pencil can kind of be used almost like a blending stump in some ways. And then I'm just modulating the color in other areas of the clouds. This is going to help to kind of bring it together with the right hand part of the sky that I worked on earlier. Blending again with the white. So don't be afraid to pull out that white colored pencil and kind of go back in. When I apply that white colored pencil as a blender, I do press pretty hard. Okay, so start looking at your landscape, figure out what colored pencils you'll need to layer to modulate the color, and then start to plan out how you're going to apply the textures for any clouds that you have in that area, and just vary your pressure, your textural strokes, and the colors that you're applying to get that technique on point for your sky. And check in with me with any questions that you have.